You are not suffering because life is difficult, but because your judgments about life are uncontrolled. You keep searching for relief in outcomes you cannot govern, while ignoring the one place where order is possible within your own mind. That is why nothing stays settled even when circumstances improve. This is not abstract teaching. It is direct examination of how you think during ordinary moments when you react too fast and question too little. What follows is a return to the basic Stoic work of separating what is yours from what is not, and restoring reason as your guide in every choice. If you want more of this kind of clarity, then stay here and subscribe so you remain in a space built around disciplined thinking and honest self-awareness. Number 1. Accept what lies beyond your control without resistance today. Look at your life without excuse. You are tired because you have been trying to command what does not belong to you. You have spent your attention on other people's choices. You have tied your peace to outcomes that were never in your hands. You have waited for the world to arrange itself before you decided to be steady. That is why you feel divided. That is why you wake up already behind. That is why your mind runs ahead of your life and then complains when life does not follow. You have been asking from the outside what can only be born from within. Stop there. Do not move past this too quickly. The first duty is to see clearly. Most people never do. They call their anxiety carefulness. They call their craving ambition. They call their resentment justice. They call their fear wisdom. But names do not change nature. If your peace rises and falls with praise, money, attention, comfort, or the behavior of others, then your peace is not yours. It is leased. Anything leased can be taken back. Anything dependent on outside events is fragile. The wise man refuses to build his life on what can be lost in a moment. What is up to you is your judgment. What is up to you is your choice. What is up to you is your impulse toward action. What is up to you is whether you tell the truth, whether you act justly, whether you keep your word, whether you meet hardship with courage, whether you hold back from corruption, whether you refuse to become smaller than your reason. That is your realm. That alone. Everything else is borrowed. Your body is borrowed. Your reputation is borrowed. Your possessions are borrowed. The opinions of others are borrowed. The day itself is borrowed. You are a steward, not an owner. The man who remembers this becomes harder to break. You suffer when you forget the boundary between what depends on you and what does not. You suffer because you want your will extended over events that resist you by nature. You want people to behave properly. You want life to be fair on command. You want success to arrive without delay. You want love without risk. You want certainty before action. You want control over the weather of existence. That desire is not strength. It is confusion. It is a mind that has not accepted the terms of life. The world will not ask your permission before it changes. People will not wait for your comfort before they disappoint you. Bodies weaken, plans fail, doors close, the market shifts, the message does not come. The praise you expected never arrives. The person you trusted turns away. The career stalls. The illness comes. The insult lands. The schedule breaks. None of this is rare. None of this is unfair in the sense that matters to philosophy. It is simply life moving according to its nature. To rage at this is to rage at existence itself. And existence does not bend because you are offended. So begin here. Separate the things that are yours from the things that are not. Do it now, and do it honestly. Ask yourself before each day begins, what is under my authority today? Not what I wish were under my authority, not what I hope will be, what truly is. My judgments, my choices, my conduct, my willingness to do what is right, my refusal to lie to myself, my capacity to accept events without surrendering virtue. That is the list. Keep it short, keep it clean. Do not pollute it with fantasies. When you wake up, do not reach for the world first. Reach for your mind. Before messages, before noise, before opinion, before the first demand from the day, sit still and tell yourself the truth. Today I may meet delay. Today I may meet insult. Today I may meet loss. Today I may meet confusion. Today I may meet my own weakness. None of these things will injure me unless I surrender my judgment. None of these things can force me to betray reason. None of these things can make me unjust unless I consent. This is not coldness. This is freedom. The free man is not the one who gets everything he wants. The free man is the one who does not need the world to obey him in order to remain upright. You must learn the discipline of desire. Most pain begins there. You desire what is not necessary. You dress it up as need. You tell yourself you cannot be whole without it. That is how the mind becomes enslaved. The hungry mind says more approval, more ease, more certainty, more pleasure, more escape, more proof, more control. But desire without measure is a fire that consumes the house it lives in. The wise man does not feed every wish that enters his mind. He examines it. He asks whether it belongs to virtue or to vanity, to nature or to appetite, to reason or to weakness. If it is only pleasure, he does not obey it. If it is only status, he does not obey it. If it is only comfort, he does not obey it. He asks what is fitting, what is honorable, what is just. This is why the Stoic path is difficult and clean. It does not flatter the lower part of you. It does not promise that you will get what you crave. It promises something better. It promises that you can become a person who does not collapse when craving is denied. That is a victory worth having. Many people have received what they wanted and still remained miserable. Many have lost what they wanted and discovered a stronger self. Therefore, do not make happiness a hostage to acquisition. Build it on character, and let everything else be secondary. If you want a practice that will change you, use the first hour of the day to train your mind to accept what is not yours to command. Before you speak to anyone, list the possible frustrations you may meet. Then decide in advance that each one will be met with steadiness. Not because you enjoy difficulty, not because suffering is holy in itself, but because your character is more important than your comfort. This simple exercise strips drama from the day. It prevents surprise from becoming collapse. The event may still wound your preference. It need not wound your judgment. Then begin to watch your reactions in real time. The moment something goes wrong, do not rush to complain. Do not immediately explain why you are right to be upset. Do not demand that the world apologize before you regain balance. Pause. Breathe. Ask what part of this is actually under your power. The delay in the reply is not under your power. Your choice of tone is. The other person's mood is not under your power. Your response is. The loss of the opportunity is not under your power. Your next action is. The insult is not under your power. Your judgment about the insult is. That pause is where philosophy lives. Without that pause, you are only a creature of impulse. You must become severe with your impressions. An impression arrives. It says, "This is unbearable." It says, "I have been disrespected." It says, "I am falling behind." It says, "This should not be happening." It says, "I need this." It says, "I cannot endure this." Do not believe every voice that enters your mind. The mind is crowded. Not every thought is true. Not every feeling is wise. Not every urge deserves obedience. Your duty is not to silence the mind through force. Your duty is to question it. Train yourself to answer each impression with examination. Is this in my control? Is this truly evil or only unpleasant? Does it damage my character or only my preference? Is this something to resist or something to accept and use well? This habit will make you less dramatic and more powerful. Acceptance is not surrender of virtue, it is surrender of vanity. It is the end of arguing with what has already happened. Many waste years trying to rewrite yesterday. They rehearse the offense. They replay the disappointment. They circle the loss. They wish the person had spoken differently. They wish the chance had returned. They wish life had been gentler. But yesterday is already sealed. It does not return for your approval. The only rational question is what now? What does virtue require now? What is the just action now? What is the courageous action now? What is the restrained action now? What is the truthful action now? The past is gone. The future is not here. The present is your workshop. Use it. There is no dignity in refusing reality. There is only exhaustion. You may grieve. Stoicism is not the denial of feeling. It is the refusal to be ruled by feeling. You may feel the sting of loss. You may feel the weight of disappointment. You may feel the pressure of uncertainty. These are natural. What is not natural is to let them govern your reason. What is not noble is to build a life around avoiding every discomfort. The person who cannot bear discomfort cannot bear life. The person who cannot bear uncertainty cannot bear freedom. The person who cannot bear not getting his way has made himself weak before the first test. Therefore, train yourself in small things. Do not wait for a great tragedy to discover whether you have discipline. Take a cold shower and do not complain. Walk when you could ride. Eat simply when food is easy to overindulge. Leave room between desire and action. Let the mind learn that not every urge will be obeyed. These small acts are not about punishment. They are about proving to yourself that you can endure a little in order to remain master of the larger. A man who can deny himself in little things can hold himself together in bigger ones. A man who can accept discomfort in practice will not break so easily in real hardship. And when life truly does strike hard, remember that your power is not in preventing the strike. Your power is in choosing who you become under the strike. This is the heart of the matter. The world may deliver pain. You decide whether pain becomes corruption. The world may deliver delay. You decide whether delay becomes bitterness. The world may deliver loss. You decide whether loss becomes collapse. The world may deliver insult. You decide whether insult becomes shame. The world may deliver uncertainty. You decide whether uncertainty becomes panic. Your freedom begins where this decision is understood. Do not say that it is impossible. That is the language of a mind that wants excuses. You already know the difference between what is yours and what is not. You already know when you are pretending not to know. The conscience is not silent. It has been warning you each time you chase what cannot satisfy you. It warns you when you measure your worth by applause. It warns you when you let anger speak first. It warns you when you sacrifice your principles for ease. It warns you when you scroll instead of think. It warns you when you seek relief instead of clarity. The problem is not ignorance, it is refusal. So stop refusing. Stop asking the world to make you steady. No event can do that for you. A favorable outcome is not a philosophy. A warm feeling is not a foundation. Approval is not strength. Comfort is not wisdom. You must build inwardly. You must make your reason the ruler of your life. That means you tell yourself the truth even when it hurts your vanity. It means you accept correction. It means you admit when you are wrong. It means you do not defend every weakness just because it is familiar. It means you choose the harder right over the easier wrong. That is how character grows, not through self-pity, through self-government. Ask yourself during the day, what am I protecting? Am I protecting my peace or my image? Am I protecting my reason or my appetite? Am I protecting what is noble or what is comfortable? This question exposes much. The false self wants praise and comfort. The disciplined self wants to be good. The false self wants to avoid embarrassment. The disciplined self wants to avoid shame before reason. The false self wants to win the room. The disciplined self wants to remain just. Learn to prefer the latter. It will cost you some pleasures. It will spare you a ruined soul. There will be times when acceptance feels like defeat. It is not defeat unless you call it so. If the weather changes and you do not curse it, have you lost? If a plan fails and you remain honorable, have you lost? If a person misunderstands you and you still act justly, have you lost? If you do not receive what you wanted but you do not betray yourself, have you lost? No, you have won the only victory that is truly yours. The rest is theater. The world praises and blames like wind moving across a field. Do not let wind decide the worth of your harvest. There is a deep calm that appears when you stop chasing what was never stable. It is not passivity, it is not numbness, it is clear sight. You begin to see that much of what once agitated you was built on false expectation. You expected people to be different. You expected life to be smoother. You expected your effort to be immediately rewarded. You expected your mood to be protected. But expectation without wisdom is a form of self-harm. Replace expectation with preparedness. Replace fantasy with readiness. Replace complaint with action. Replace demand with duty. Your duty today is to act well in the place where you stand, not in some imagined future where everything is easier, not in some altered past where nothing went wrong. Right here, at your desk, in your home, in your relationship, in your solitude, in your temptation, in your disappointment, in your fear. This is where philosophy is proven. Anyone can speak of virtue when life is smooth. The measure is whether you remain upright when pressure arrives. This is why the Stoic life is not decorative. It is combat with your own disorder. And make no mistake, the greatest battle is not with the world. It is with your own demand that the world must obey you. When that demand dies, peace enters, not because the world becomes gentle, but because you become reasonable. Reason says, this event is outside my command, therefore I will not attach my worth to it. Reason says, this emotion is present, therefore I will observe it without surrendering to it. Reason says, this desire may be strong, therefore it must be examined before it is served. Reason says, my character is mine, therefore I will defend it with every breath. This is how a life becomes ordered. The undisciplined mind wants relief now. It wants to feel better before it behaves better. It wants comfort before duty. It wants certainty before courage. It wants reward before effort. That mind will forever be delayed by its own demands. The rational mind does not ask permission from comfort. It asks what virtue requires. Then it moves. This is why disciplined people often appear calm. They have stopped negotiating with every impulse. They have trained themselves to act from principle rather than mood. They have learnt that a good life is not assembled by chance. It is shaped by repeated choices. Begin to keep a record of those choices. In the evening, before sleep, review the day without theatre. Where did you surrender to irritation? Where did you act from vanity? Where did you avoid a hard truth? Where did you blame what you should have owned? Where did you hold your ground? Where did you speak with justice? Where did you resist an impulse? Where did you fail to do so? Do not use this review to shame yourself into despair. Use it to sharpen your judgment. The aim is not self-hatred. The aim is self-knowledge. The man who sees himself clearly can improve. The man who lies to himself remains trapped. Some of your suffering will not vanish because you understood it, but your relationship to it will change. You will begin to see that hardship is not always the enemy of your life. Sometimes it reveals what you are made of. Sometimes it strips away laziness. Sometimes it exposes dependence. Sometimes it teaches patience. Sometimes it trains endurance. Sometimes it makes clear what matters. When you stop resisting every difficulty as if it were an insult, you begin to use life as a teacher instead of a courtroom. This shift matters. The world becomes less personal. Your conduct becomes more serious. This does not mean you seek pain for its own sake. That would be another foolishness. You do not need to worship suffering. You need to stop fleeing from the lessons that discomfort carries. If a task is hard, do it. If a conversation is necessary, have it. If an apology is due, make it. If a boundary is needed, set it. If a habit is corrupting you, cut it off. If your mind is scattered, bring it back. If your life is noisy, reduce the noise. If your attention has been sold to trivial things, take it back. All of this is within reach, not easy, within reach. A life governed by acceptance is not a weak life. It is a life freed from waste. No energy spent on arguing with reality. No energy spent on forcing the impossible. No energy spent on resentment that changes nothing. That energy returns to the only place where it can do good, the cultivation of character. There is power in this, quiet power, steady power, the kind of power that does not need applause because it is built on truth, the kind of power that can be alone without falling apart, the kind of power that can fail and still remain honorable, the kind of power that can lose and still not become lesser. You may still feel the old pull. That is normal. The habits of the soul do not vanish overnight, but do not make peace with your weakness just because it is familiar. Keep returning to the truth. Keep distinguishing what is yours from what is not. Keep asking whether your current distress comes from the event itself or from your judgment about the event. Many times it is the latter. A loss may be real. Your story about the loss often makes it worse. A delay may be real. Your demand that delay should not exist often poisons it further. A wound may be real. Your pride may keep tearing it open. Be ruthless with false stories. Be gentle only with what is truly human. When you are tempted to say that everything is falling apart, ask whether that is fact or panic. When you are tempted to say that you cannot go on, ask whether that is truth or fatigue. When you are tempted to say that life has wronged you, ask whether life has actually violated reason or merely disappointed desire. These questions restore proportion. Proportion is one of the first medicines of the soul. A thing shrinks when seen clearly. Many terrors grow large only in the dark. Bring them into daylight. Examine them. Most will lose their authority. And remember this above all. The goal is not to become numb to the world. The goal is to become faithful to reason within the world. You still work. You still care. You still love. You still serve. You still face loss when it comes. You still act with kindness. But you do not let these things drag your soul into slavery. You love without possession. You work without obsession. You serve without complaint. You face loss without collapse. You remain human without becoming weak. This is the disciplined middle path of the Stoic life. Not indifference, not addiction, not surrender, mastery. Today, practice acceptance in one concrete way. Choose one thing that has been troubling you and stop arguing with it in your mind. Name it plainly. This has happened. This is outside my control. My response is mine. Then decide on the next just action. Not the ideal action, not the dramatic action. The just action. Make the call. Do the work. Tell the truth. Hold the line. Let the world remain what it is while you become what you ought to be. That is enough for today. That is not a small thing. It is the beginning of freedom. Do this long enough, and your whole relation to life changes. You stop begging from the future. You stop chasing illusions. You stop treating every inconvenience as a catastrophe. You stop letting moods dictate duty. You stop thinking that peace is something granted by circumstances. You discover that peace is a result of ordered judgment. That discovery is worth more than all the passing things people spend their lives pursuing. It cannot be stolen if it is built well. It cannot be worn down by the opinions of others if it is rooted in reason. It does not need the world to stay still. So wake up with seriousness. Go through the day with discipline. Meet what comes without complaint and without softness toward your own excuses. Review yourself at night. Correct yourself. Return again in the morning. This is how a life is changed, not by grand promises, not by emotional peaks, not by waiting to feel ready, by repeated obedience to reason, by a daily refusal to live as if externals were masters, by the slow and honest construction of a self that can stand upright in any weather. You do not need to search everywhere for what can only be found by standing still within yourself and taking command of your judgments. The world will continue to offer noise. Let it. The world will continue to offer temptation. Let it. The world will continue to offer delay, loss, and uncertainty. Let it. None of that decides your life unless you surrender your reason. Keep your attention where your power is. Keep your character clean. Keep your choice aligned with virtue. Keep your mind from begging the world to become something it is not. Then you will know what many chase and few attain. A life that cannot be shaken by what it does not control. That is enough. Not a life without pain. A life without self-betrayal. Not a world without loss. A soul that does not lose itself. Not perfect ease. Perfect attention to what is right. Hold to that today. Hold to it tomorrow. Hold to it when praised. Hold to it when ignored. Hold to it when tested. Hold to it when tired. Hold to it when you would rather escape. In that holding lies your dignity. In that discipline lies your freedom. In that acceptance lies the end of unnecessary suffering. And in that end, you may finally begin to live as a rational human being should. Number 2. Govern your judgments before chasing any outward desire again. Your greatest obstacle is rarely the event before you. It is the judgment you attach to it before you have even examined it. The mind is quick to announce that something is unfair, unbearable, humiliating, or necessary. Yet these conclusions often arrive long before reason has been invited to speak. Most people spend their lives obeying these first impressions as though they were established facts. They never stop to ask whether the mind has earned the right to be believed. This is where your work begins. You cannot build a steady life while allowing every passing thought to become your master. A disciplined person does not refuse to feel. They refuse to surrender authority over their choices to feelings that have not been examined. The first reaction belongs to nature. The second belongs to character. Between the two lies the freedom that philosophy asks you to cultivate every day. Notice how quickly your mind labels ordinary events. A delayed reply becomes rejection. A criticism becomes proof of failure. A difficult conversation becomes something to avoid. A mistake becomes a permanent identity. These judgments are often accepted without evidence simply because they arrived with strong emotion. Strength of feeling is not proof of truth. Reason asks different questions. What actually happened? What part of this situation belongs to my own conduct? What assumptions am I adding? What action would reflect wisdom instead of impulse? These questions interrupt the habit of living on automatic judgment. They create a space where choice becomes possible. Many people chase new possessions, greater recognitions, or constant comfort because they have already judged that these things will complete them. The pursuit begins long before the first step. It begins with an untested belief that happiness exists somewhere outside the condition of one's own character. If that judgment is false, every effort built upon it carries the same error. This is why governing your judgments must come before pursuing any desire. Every desire should first stand before the court of reason. Ask yourself whether what you seek will improve your character or merely satisfy a temporary appetite. Ask whether obtaining it depends upon fortune rather than virtue. Ask whether losing it would destroy your peace. If the answer to that final question is yes, then you have already surrendered too much authority over your own life. A stable mind values good character above favorable circumstances because character remains available in every situation. Wealth may disappear, health may weaken, reputation may rise and fall according to opinions that shift from one day to the next. Yet honesty remains available, justice remains available, self-restraint remains available, courage remains available. These cannot be taken unless you willingly abandon them. Consider how often disappointment begins with expectation rather than reality itself. You expected another person to understand your intentions without explanation. You expected every effort to receive immediate reward. You expected life to follow the plan you created in your imagination. When reality moved differently, frustration appeared. The event did not create all your suffering. The expectation prepared much of it in advance. Train yourself instead to meet each day without demanding that it satisfy your preferences. Begin every morning with deliberate preparation. Before the noise of the day enters your attention, spend several quiet minutes examining your own mind. Ask what duties await you. Consider where impatience may appear. Think about moments that might tempt you toward anger, vanity, fear, or laziness. You are not predicting failure. You are strengthening awareness before temptation arrives. A prepared mind is more difficult to disturb. Throughout the day, practice delaying your agreement with every powerful impression. When irritation rises, pause before speaking. When praise arrives, pause before becoming proud. When criticism appears, pause before becoming defensive. When desire insists that something must be obtained immediately, pause before acting. This pause is not hesitation born from fear. It is discipline born from reason. Within that brief silence, ask whether your next action serves your principles or merely your impulses. That single question, repeated consistently, can change the direction of an entire life. You will discover that many disturbances lose their strength when examined carefully. Some fears depend entirely upon imagined futures. Some resentments survive only because they are repeated internally. Some desires fade when exposed to honest questioning. The mind often creates burdens that reality never required you to carry. Do not confuse examining your judgments with endless overthinking. The purpose is clarity, not hesitation. Once reason has done its work, act decisively. Philosophy exists to guide action, not replace it. Every day offers opportunities to practice honesty, patience, fairness, moderation, and courage. These opportunities matter far more than endless speculation about distant possibilities. Your relationships also change when your judgments become disciplined. You stop expecting perfection from imperfect people. You stop treating disagreement as hostility. You stop assuming malicious intent where simple misunderstanding may exist. You become slower to accuse and quicker to understand. This does not make you weak, it makes you just. Justice begins with seeing clearly before deciding. Likewise, you become less dependent upon praise because you understand that another person's opinion cannot define your worth. Approval may feel pleasant, but it cannot improve your character unless it encourages virtue. Criticism may feel painful, but it cannot diminish your character unless you respond without integrity. Your task is not to manage every opinion. Your task is to govern your own conduct. Each evening, return to yourself before sleep. Review the day honestly. Ask where you accepted a judgment too quickly. Notice where emotions spoke louder than reason. Recognize moments where you acted well despite difficulty. Identify places where greater discipline is still needed. This examination is not an exercise in guilt, it is daily instruction. Improvement belongs to those who are willing to observe themselves without excuse. Progress rarely arrives through dramatic moments. It grows through repeated corrections that may appear insignificant at first. One thoughtful pause instead of one angry reaction, one honest admission instead of one convenient excuse, one disciplined choice instead of one impulsive desire. These small victories accumulate into a character capable of remaining steady amid changing circumstances. Eventually, you begin to notice something remarkable. External events continue to change just as they always have, yet your inner life becomes less dependent upon them. Difficult days remain difficult, but they no longer dictate your identity. Success becomes something to appreciate rather than cling to. Failure becomes something to learn from rather than fear. Desire becomes something to examine rather than obey. This is the quiet freedom that disciplined judgment creates. Do not wait for a perfect season of life before beginning this practice. Your next conversation offers an opportunity. Your next disappointment offers an opportunity. Your next temptation offers an opportunity. Every ordinary moment contains the chance to place reason before impulse. The direction of your life is determined less by what happens around you than by the judgments you repeatedly choose to accept. Guard those judgments with care. Examine them before giving them authority. Let reason become the gatekeeper of your thoughts, and virtue become the measure of every decision. When your judgments are governed wisely, your desires cease to rule you, your actions become deliberate, and your character gradually becomes the one possession that no change of fortune can ever take away. Number 3. Release endless seeking and strengthen your character through discipline daily. You spend much of your life believing that the next achievement, the next possession, the next relationship, or the next opportunity will finally settle your mind. Yet each time you arrive where you once longed to be, the mind immediately invents another destination. It whispers that fulfillment is still ahead. It tells you that peace belongs somewhere beyond your present condition. Without questioning this habit, you obey it. You continue searching without ever asking whether the search itself has become your greatest distraction. This pattern deserves careful examination because it quietly governs countless decisions. It influences how you spend your mornings, how you speak to those around you, how you measure success, and how you respond to disappointment. You imagine that rest will come after one more accomplishment, but the habit of endless seeking never rewards obedience. It simply changes its object. A mind trained to chase will always find another reason to chase. The disciplined life begins when you stop asking what else you can acquire and begin asking who you are becoming through each choice you make. This question shifts your attention from possessions to character, from outcomes to conduct, from appetite to reason. It asks you to evaluate yourself according to something that remains within your authority regardless of changing circumstances. Notice how often dissatisfaction grows from comparison between reality and imagination. You picture a life without setbacks, a career without obstacles, relationships without misunderstanding, or progress without difficulty. Reality refuses to follow these inventions, and frustration appears. The frustration is not evidence that life has failed you. It reveals that your expectations have drifted away from reason. Reason asks for something simpler and far more demanding. It asks whether you are acting with integrity today. It asks whether your words match your principles. It asks whether you remain patient when impatience would be easier. It asks whether you continue doing what is right, even when no one notices. These questions cannot be answered by fortune. They can only be answered by your own conduct. Many people confuse movement with progress. They fill every hour with activity, believing that constant motion proves meaningful living, yet activity directed by restless desire produces exhaustion rather than wisdom. A person may travel through countless experiences while remaining unchanged in character. Another may live quietly, faithfully practicing discipline each day, and become genuinely free. Do not measure your life by how much has happened. Measure it by how faithfully reason has governed your choices. The mind that constantly seeks novelty often avoids examination. It becomes easier to pursue another goal than to confront an old weakness. It becomes easier to change jobs than to improve patience. Easier to seek admiration than to strengthen honesty. Easier to accumulate possessions than to cultivate moderation. Endless pursuit can become an escape from the difficult work of governing yourself. This is why discipline must become your daily companion rather than an occasional effort inspired by emotion. Character is not transformed through moments of enthusiasm. It is shaped through repeated acts of deliberate choice performed long after enthusiasm has faded. When you rise each morning, do not begin by asking what you hope to gain before the day ends. Ask instead what quality of character the day will require from you. Perhaps it will require patience because delays will come. Perhaps it will require courage because difficult conversations await. Perhaps it will require self-restraint because temptation will present itself in familiar forms. Perhaps it will require justice because another person's mistake will test your fairness. Preparing your character before events unfold changes the entire direction of the day. Instead of reacting to circumstances, you enter them already committed to acting according to principle. As you move through your responsibilities, pay close attention to moments when desire begins directing your attention. Desire often disguises itself as urgency. It insists that satisfaction cannot wait. It persuades you that immediate comfort deserves priority over lasting virtue. If you accept every invitation offered by desire, your life gradually becomes organized around appetite rather than wisdom. Pause whenever this impulse appears. Ask yourself whether the action before you strengthens your character or merely satisfies a passing craving. The answer is often clearer than you expect when pride and impatience are set aside. Discipline is not measured only during extraordinary trials. It is revealed through ordinary decisions repeated every day. Returning a message honestly rather than conveniently, completing work with care even when no recognition follows, speaking calmly instead of seeking the final word during disagreement, choosing moderation when excess is available, remaining faithful to your responsibilities despite changing moods. These quiet victories rarely attract attention from others, yet they steadily transform the person who practices them. You may be tempted to believe that discipline limits freedom. In truth, the opposite is closer to reality. Without discipline, every passing impulse gains authority over your choices. Your attention becomes scattered, your emotions become inconsistent. Your commitments become fragile because they depend upon comfort instead of conviction. True freedom appears when reason decides and impulse obeys. Consider how much unnecessary suffering begins with the refusal to accept gradual progress. You want immediate mastery over habits developed through years of neglect. When improvement comes slowly, discouragement replaces effort. Yet nature itself rarely works through sudden perfection. Growth appears through repeated cultivation. Character follows the same order. Judge yourself not by whether every weakness disappeared today, but by whether you met today's opportunities with greater awareness than yesterday. There will be failures. Some days impatience will return. Some days fear will speak louder than reason. Some days comfort will appear more attractive than duty. These moments should not become permission to abandon the path. They should become instruction. Each mistake contains information if approached honestly. Instead of condemning yourself, Examine yourself. Ask what judgment produced the action. Ask what desire gained authority. Ask what discipline was neglected. Then return immediately to right conduct without unnecessary delay. Self-correction requires humility, and humility strengthens rather than weakens the rational mind. Pride insists upon defending every mistake. Wisdom welcomes correction because truth matters more than appearance. Your relationships also reveal whether discipline truly governs your character. It is easy to appear composed in solitude. It is more difficult to remain measured when another person misunderstands you, interrupts your plans, or responds with anger. These encounters expose the actual condition of your inner life. Treat them as opportunities rather than interruptions. When another person's conduct disappoints you, direct your attention first toward your own response. Their behavior belongs to them. Your words, your patience, your fairness, and your restraint belong to you. Every interaction becomes training for virtue if approached with this understanding. You will gradually notice that the urge to seek approval weakens as discipline grows stronger. The opinions of others lose much of their influence because your standard no longer changes according to public praise or criticism. You become more interested in whether your actions deserve respect than whether they receive it. This shift brings remarkable stability. A person governed by discipline remains steady across changing circumstances because the source of direction lies within character rather than reputation. Do not imagine that this way of living removes difficulty from life. Challenges remain, loss still occurs, uncertainty continues. Other people retain the freedom to disappoint you. Fortune continues changing according to its own course. What changes is your relationship with these realities. Instead of demanding that life become easier, you become more capable. Instead of expecting every path to remain smooth, you strengthen your ability to walk steadily across uneven ground. This transformation cannot be purchased. It cannot be borrowed from another person. It cannot be granted by favorable circumstances. It must be practiced. Give yourself one deliberate exercise each day. Choose one ordinary task and perform it with complete attention instead of haste. Choose one unnecessary desire and decline it willingly. Choose one inconvenience and meet it without complaint. Choose one difficult responsibility and complete it before seeking entertainment. These exercises appear small, yet they quietly reorder the mind. They teach that peace grows from disciplined action rather than endless consumption. At the close of each day, spend time reviewing not what you accumulated, but what you cultivated within yourself. Ask whether you became more truthful, more patient, more just, or more moderate. Consider where distraction stole your attention and where discipline restored it. Let each evening become instruction for the following morning. The value of this practice lies in consistency rather than intensity. A single day of careful reflection changes little. Months and years of honest examination reshape an entire life. Eventually, you begin noticing that the desire to search endlessly has lost much of its power. Not because ambition has disappeared, but because ambition itself has become ordered by reason. You still pursue worthy goals, yet they no longer determine your peace. You work diligently without believing that success defines your worth. You accept opportunities without becoming dependent upon them. You appreciate favorable circumstances without fearing their loss. This is the difference between living for external rewards and living according to disciplined character. The first creates constant restlessness because satisfaction always waits somewhere beyond the present moment. The second creates quiet confidence because every day provides another opportunity to practice virtue regardless of external conditions. Remember that each sunrise presents the same essential question: will your attention be directed outward by endless desire, or inward toward the cultivation of character? Every choice throughout the day answers that question. When desire urges you toward distraction, answer with discipline. When comfort tempts you away from duty, answer with discipline. When impatience encourages careless words, answer with discipline. When discouragement invites surrender, answer with discipline. Not because discipline guarantees favorable outcomes, but because disciplined character is itself one of the highest achievements available to a rational human being. Release the habit of believing that fulfillment waits somewhere beyond today's responsibilities. Stand where you are. Perform the duty before you with honesty, fairness, courage, and self-restraint. Return to these principles tomorrow, and then the day after that. A life governed in this way no longer depends upon endless seeking, because its deepest work is taking place within the one place that always deserves your greatest attention, your own character. Number 4. Examine every thought before allowing emotion to command your actions. Most people believe that emotions arrive first and actions simply follow. They excuse harsh words by saying they were angry. They defend reckless decisions by saying they felt overwhelmed. They surrender to fear because it appeared convincing in the moment. Yet there is a step that often goes unnoticed. Before emotion gains influence over your conduct, the mind has already accepted a judgment about what has happened. That silent agreement shapes everything that follows. Your work begins at that hidden point. You cannot govern every feeling that arises within you, but you can become far more careful about the thoughts you allow to become convictions. Every day your mind receives countless impressions. Some arrive through the words of other people. Some come from memory. Others appear as sudden assumptions about the future. None of these impressions deserve immediate trust, simply because they entered your awareness. The disciplined mind does not reject every thought. It refuses to surrender to every thought. There is an important difference. Many people spend years believing they are responding to reality when they are actually responding to their own interpretations. Someone fails to greet them, and they conclude they are being ignored. A plan changes unexpectedly, and they decide the day is ruined. A mistake occurs at work, and they convince themselves they are incapable. An unfamiliar challenge appears, and they assume failure before making the first attempt. The event itself remains simple. The judgment placed upon the event creates the disturbance. This is why careful examination of thought is one of the greatest responsibilities of a rational person. If your judgments remain careless, your emotions will repeatedly pull your life in conflicting directions. 1 hour you will feel confident, the next you will feel defeated. One conversation will leave you encouraged, another will leave you discouraged. Your peace will belong to circumstances rather than to your own reason. A life governed this way cannot become stable. The first discipline is learning to notice the exact moment when a thought seeks your agreement. Not every thought deserves acceptance. Not every fear deserves belief. Not every desire deserves pursuit. Not every memory deserves repeated attention. When an impression arrives, pause before calling it true. Ask yourself what evidence actually supports it. Ask whether you are observing reality or merely reacting to appearance. Ask whether your interpretation reflects wisdom or habit. These questions interrupt the speed with which emotion often takes command. This practice feels unnatural at first because the undisciplined mind prefers immediate certainty. It would rather judge quickly than understand carefully. Yet haste rarely serves virtue. Hasty conclusions often produce unnecessary anger, unnecessary anxiety, and unnecessary regret. Reason moves more deliberately. Reason is willing to examine before deciding. This patience protects both your character and your relationships. Consider how many disagreements begin with assumptions rather than facts. One person speaks carelessly, another assumes disrespect. Pride responds before understanding has even been attempted. Voices rise, resentment grows. Days of peace are exchanged for hours of conflict. all because an untested judgment was accepted as truth. Imagine approaching the same moment differently. Instead of reacting immediately, you quietly ask yourself whether another explanation might exist. Perhaps the person is distracted rather than hostile. Perhaps they misunderstood rather than intended harm. Perhaps they are struggling with burdens you cannot see. Even if their conduct truly was unjust, your responsibility remains the same. Your response should reflect your principles rather than their behavior. Their character belongs to them. Yours belongs to you. This understanding changes every conversation because it keeps your attention focused where it can accomplish genuine good. The same discipline applies to fear. Fear often presents imagined futures as though they were already unfolding. The mind rehearses failure before action begins. It invents embarrassment before speaking. It predicts rejection before making an honest effort. These imagined outcomes gain strength because they are repeated without examination. Ask yourself whether the future you fear has actually arrived. Most often, it has not. You are exhausting yourself by fighting possibilities instead of meeting realities. Bring your attention back to what can actually be done today. If preparation is needed, prepare. If action is required, act. If waiting is unavoidable, wait with patience rather than panic. Reason concerns itself with present responsibilities rather than imagined disasters. The same careful examination should guide moments of success. Pleasant emotions also require discipline. Praise can quietly encourage vanity if accepted without reflection. Achievement can create arrogance if you begin believing that external success determines your worth. Comfort can weaken resilience if you become unwilling to endure inconvenience. Examine these experiences with the same honesty you bring to hardship. Ask whether success has strengthened your character or merely your pride. Ask whether comfort has restored your energy or reduced your discipline. Every experience becomes useful when viewed through the standard of virtue rather than pleasure. Begin every morning by preparing your mind before the world begins demanding your attention. Sit quietly for several minutes without distraction. Consider the responsibilities waiting for you. Think about situations likely to test your patience, honesty, courage, or self-restraint. Do not imagine these difficulties in order to become anxious. Imagine them so that you enter the day prepared to meet them wisely. A prepared mind is less likely to surrender itself to sudden emotion because it has already decided what principles will guide its conduct. Throughout the day, create deliberate pauses. Before replying to criticism, pause. Before defending yourself, pause. Before making an important decision, pause. Before acting from excitement, pause. Before acting from frustration, pause. These moments of stillness are not signs of weakness. They are evidence that reason remains awake. Within those few quiet seconds, ask a simple question. What action would allow me to respect myself when this moment has passed? That question shifts attention away from temporary emotion toward lasting character. Very often the answer becomes clear. Sometimes silence is wiser than argument. Sometimes honesty is better than convenience. Sometimes patience serves justice more faithfully than immediate reaction. Sometimes restraint protects relationships more effectively than proving yourself right. The disciplined mind values these long-term goods above short-lived emotional satisfaction. As evening arrives, examine the day with complete honesty. Review your conversations. Review your decisions. Review the moments when emotion became strong. Do not ask whether you felt perfectly calm. Ask whether your actions remained faithful to reason despite changing emotions. Notice where irritation gained authority. Notice where pride influenced your words. Notice where fear delayed necessary action. Then ask what judgment allowed each emotion to take command. This form of reflection gradually uncovers patterns that remain invisible during ordinary living. You begin recognizing recurring assumptions. You notice familiar excuses. You identify situations where your attention repeatedly drifts away from principle. Awareness becomes the beginning of correction. Remember that emotions themselves are not moral failures. They are part of being human. The question is whether they become rulers or advisors. An advisor may present valuable information. A ruler demands unquestioning obedience. Allow reason alone to govern. Let emotion speak without granting it final authority. This distinction preserves both humanity and discipline. You do not become cold. You become trustworthy. Others begin to experience steadiness in your presence because your responses no longer depend entirely upon passing moods. Your words become more measured. Your decisions become more consistent. Your promises become more reliable because they rest upon conviction rather than impulse. The greatest victories rarely occur in dramatic public moments. They often happen silently within the mind. A harsh reply remains unspoken. An impatient judgment is reconsidered. An anxious thought loses its authority after honest examination. A selfish impulse is replaced by an act of fairness. No audience applauds these victories, yet they steadily transform the person achieving them. Do not expect immediate perfection. Years of careless thinking cannot be replaced in a single day. The goal is not flawless performance. The goal is increasing vigilance. Each examined thought strengthens your ability to govern the next. Each deliberate response weakens the habit of impulsive reaction. Each honest reflection prepares you for tomorrow's challenges. Eventually you discover that circumstances have not become easier. People still disappoint. Plans still change. Unexpected difficulties still appear. What has changed is your relationship with them. Your inner life is no longer carried away by every passing impression. Your choices arise from careful judgment instead of emotional urgency. You begin living according to principles that remain steady regardless of changing conditions. Guard your thoughts with the same care that a skilled craftsperson guards their finest tools. The quality of your judgments shapes the quality of your actions. The quality of your actions shapes the quality of your character. And character, faithfully cultivated through daily examination, becomes the one possession that grows stronger each time you choose reason over impulse. Number 5. Choose virtue over comfort, and let peace quietly follow naturally. Your life is shaped less by the difficult moments you face than by the standard you choose before those moments arrive. Every day places two paths before you. One promises immediate comfort. The other asks for integrity. One protects convenience, the other strengthens character. The decision often seems small, yet these repeated choices quietly determine the person you become. Many people believe peace comes from arranging life so that nothing unpleasant happens. They avoid difficult conversations, postpone necessary work, seek constant approval, and organize their days around whatever feels easiest. For a short time this appears to succeed. Discomfort fades, conflict is delayed, responsibility can be ignored for another day, yet something else quietly grows. Respect for oneself begins to weaken. The mind recognizes every compromise, even when no one else notices. Every avoided duty teaches the mind that comfort is more valuable than honesty. Every convenient excuse teaches that appearance matters more than truth. Every surrender to impulse strengthens the belief that temporary relief deserves greater loyalty than lasting character. This is why comfort cannot become your highest aim. Comfort changes with circumstances. Virtue remains available under every condition. A favorable day may invite honesty. A difficult day requires honesty. Wealth allows generosity. Limited resources still allow generosity. Success provides opportunities for justice. Failure still demands justice. Courage is often most visible when circumstances become uncertain. If your principles disappear whenever life becomes uncomfortable, then they were preferences rather than convictions. Examine how often your daily frustrations begin with the desire for ease. You wish other people would always understand your intentions. You wish every effort produced immediate results. You wish responsibilities required less patience. You wish difficult choices became unnecessary. Life offers no such agreement. Instead, it offers opportunities to practice wisdom within imperfect conditions. The disciplined person stops asking whether a task is pleasant and begins asking whether it is right. This single change transforms ordinary living. Washing up after yourself becomes an exercise in responsibility. Keeping a promise becomes an exercise in reliability. Speaking honestly despite possible criticism becomes an exercise in courage. Listening carefully during disagreement becomes an exercise in justice. Nothing ordinary remains insignificant once character becomes your primary concern. Many people wait for extraordinary moments to prove themselves. They imagine courage appearing during crisis while neglecting discipline during ordinary mornings. Yet character is built long before great tests arrive. The person who cannot govern small choices should not expect effortless strength during larger trials. Your habits prepare your future responses. Each time you choose what is right over what is easy, you strengthen the part of yourself that remains dependable when life becomes demanding. This requires honest attention to your own motives. Ask yourself why you make certain decisions. Do you speak kindly because it reflects good character, or because you expect praise? Do you avoid difficult conversations because patience guides you, or because discomfort frightens you? Do you pursue success to serve meaningful work, or because your worth has become attached to recognition? The answers matter because actions that appear identical may arise from entirely different judgments. Stoic discipline concerns itself not only with what you do, but also with why you do it. Morning provides an opportunity to establish this direction before distractions appear. Spend a few quiet minutes considering the duties already waiting for you. Do not imagine the rewards you hope to receive. Think instead about the qualities required to perform those duties well. Perhaps patience will be needed, perhaps honesty, perhaps restraint, perhaps courage. Let these become your objectives rather than comfort itself. As the day unfolds, you will repeatedly encounter moments where convenience competes with principle. You may feel tempted to remain silent when truth should be spoken. You may want to postpone work that deserves your attention. You may prefer defending your pride instead of admitting a mistake. These moments deserve careful observation because they reveal the true condition of your character. The easier choice often promises immediate relief. The better choice quietly strengthens your inner life. Do not expect virtue to always feel pleasant in the moment. There are times when honesty creates temporary embarrassment. Justice may require sacrificing personal advantage. Moderation may ask you to refuse pleasures that appear harmless. Patience may require enduring misunderstanding without resentment. These experiences are not signs that virtue has failed. They are signs that virtue is demanding something worthwhile. If goodness always required no sacrifice, it would require no discipline. One of the greatest misunderstandings is believing that peace should be pursued directly. Peace cannot be forced through endless comfort. It appears naturally when your conduct no longer fights against your own conscience. A divided mind cannot remain peaceful. If you know you have acted dishonestly, no luxury removes that knowledge. If you have abandoned your principles for convenience, external success cannot silence the quiet awareness that something valuable has been exchanged. Inner harmony grows when your choices consistently agree with your deepest convictions. Throughout the day, practice asking one simple question before important actions. Does this decision strengthen my character? Allow that question to become more influential than immediate emotion. Sometimes the answer will encourage action. Sometimes it will require restraint. Sometimes it will ask for patience when impatience seems justified. Sometimes it will call for humility when pride demands recognition. These moments are where philosophy becomes practical rather than theoretical. Relationships provide some of the clearest opportunities to practice this discipline. Another person's harsh words do not give you permission to abandon fairness. Another person's impatience does not excuse your own. Another person's dishonesty does not require imitation. Their conduct belongs to their character. Your response belongs to yours. Protect that distinction carefully. It preserves both dignity and freedom. There will also be days when no one notices your effort. You will complete responsibilities without recognition. You will choose honesty when deception would have brought advantage. You will remain patient, although impatience might have gained quicker results. Do not mistake invisibility for failure. Character grows whether or not others witness its development. The most important observer is the conscience you carry throughout every hour of your life. As evening approaches, return to yourself with honesty. Review the situations where comfort tempted you away from principle. Notice the moments when you remained faithful to what was right, despite inconvenience. Also notice where you surrendered too easily. Do not use these observations to create discouragement. Use them to improve tomorrow's decisions. Progress belongs to those willing to learn from themselves each day. You will eventually discover that peace arrives quietly rather than dramatically. It does not depend upon every circumstance becoming favorable. It grows because your inner life becomes ordered. Your thoughts become more consistent with your values. Your actions become more consistent with your judgments. Your judgments become more consistent with reason. This harmony cannot be purchased or borrowed. It must be cultivated through repeated choices. Do not seek the easiest road. Seek the most honorable one. Comfort fades as conditions change. Reputation rises and falls according to opinions beyond your control. Pleasure appears and disappears with time. Yet a person who repeatedly chooses wisdom over impulse, justice over selfishness, courage over avoidance, and self-restraint over excess possesses something far more enduring. Such a person carries stability into changing circumstances rather than demanding stability from them. Make that your practice today. When the easier path presents itself, pause before accepting it. Examine whether it serves only temporary comfort or lasting character. Then choose the action that allows you to meet yourself honestly when the day is over. Peace does not need to be chased when your conduct consistently follows reason. It arrives as the natural consequence of a life in which virtue has become more valuable than comfort. And once that foundation is established, external circumstances lose much of their power to disturb the quiet strength that has been built within. Number 6. Practice contentment with this present moment through steady reason always. Your life is not being lived somewhere ahead of you. It is being lived in this single moment, whether you pay attention to it or not. Yet the mind rarely agrees to remain where life is actually unfolding. It wanders into future success, future failure, future security, future recognition, or future fear. At other times, it returns to conversations that cannot be repeated, mistakes that cannot be undone, or opportunities that have already passed. While the body remains in the present, the mind often abandons it. Then you wonder why peace feels distant. Contentment does not appear because every desire has finally been satisfied. It appears when reason teaches the mind to stop demanding that reality becomes something other than what it is before it can act well. The present moment is not valuable because it is always pleasant. It is valuable because it is the only place where your character can be exercised. No act of justice can be performed yesterday. No act of courage can be postponed until tomorrow. No honest decision can exist anywhere except now. The rational mind understands this and therefore refuses to waste today's responsibility while bargaining with imaginary versions of life. Notice how much of your unrest comes from arguments with time itself. You resent the past because it cannot be changed. You fear the future because it cannot be controlled. Between these two struggles, the present receives almost none of your attention. Yet the present is the only part of life where your judgment, your choices, and your conduct remain available to you. The first discipline is to recognize when your thoughts have left the task before you. This happens more often than you realize. While speaking with another person, you begin rehearsing tomorrow's problems. While completing meaningful work, you compare your progress to someone else's. While resting, you worry that you should be doing more. While working, you wish you were already finished. The mind continuously rejects the place where action is possible. Each time you notice this habit, quietly return. Do not become frustrated with yourself. Simply return. Return to the conversation. Return to the responsibility. Return to the duty already placed before you. Every return strengthens the habit of attention. Contentment grows from this repeated act of returning rather than from changing external conditions. Many people imagine that peace belongs only to those whose lives have become comfortable. They postpone contentment until a certain income is reached, until recognition arrives, until uncertainty disappears, or until every relationship becomes easy. They unknowingly place peace under the authority of circumstances that remain beyond complete control. Reason offers another path. Instead of asking whether circumstances deserve your satisfaction, ask whether your conduct deserves your respect. This question changes everything. A difficult day can still contain honesty. A disappointing outcome can still contain courage. A demanding responsibility can still contain patience. An ordinary afternoon can still become an opportunity to practice moderation, fairness, and self-command. When virtue becomes your measure, no day is empty. Begin each morning by preparing your attention before preparing your schedule. Sit quietly for a few minutes. Do not begin by thinking about everything you hope to accomplish. Begin by deciding how you intend to think. Tell yourself that today will contain events you did not choose. Plans may change. People may disagree with you. Unexpected delays may appear. None of these determine whether you remain truthful, patient, or just. Resolve that your character will not depend upon convenience. This preparation gives the mind direction before distraction has an opportunity to lead it elsewhere. Throughout the day, notice moments when dissatisfaction quietly enters your thoughts. It often speaks through simple sentences. This should not be happening. I will be happy when this is over. Everything would be easier if circumstances were different. Pause whenever these thoughts appear. Examine them carefully. Ask whether they are encouraging wise action or merely resisting reality. There is a profound difference between improving your situation and refusing to accept the situation from which improvement must begin. Acceptance is not resignation. Acceptance is seeing clearly. Only after seeing clearly can reason determine the next appropriate action. If work remains unfinished, continue working. If correction is needed, make the correction. If waiting is unavoidable, wait without turning patience into resentment. Your responsibility is always found in the present moment, never in imagined alternatives. One of the greatest obstacles to contentment is comparison. The mind observes another person's achievements, possessions, or recognition, and quietly concludes that its own life has become insufficient. Yet comparison rarely examines the whole picture. It compares your daily reality with another person's visible moments. It measures your private struggles against someone else's public appearance. Reason rejects such measurements because they reveal nothing about character. The only comparison worthy of your attention is between the person you were yesterday and the person you are choosing to become today. Have your judgments become more careful? Has your patience increased? Are your actions more consistent with your principles? These questions produce genuine progress because they remain entirely within your own responsibility. You should also examine your relationship with ordinary moments. The undisciplined mind treats ordinary life as something to endure while waiting for significant events. It overlooks opportunities hidden within routine responsibilities. Preparing a meal, completing honest work, caring for family, listening attentively, keeping promises, maintaining order, and fulfilling obligations all become invisible because they appear too familiar. Yet character is built precisely within these repeated actions. The person who cannot practice excellence during ordinary tasks will struggle to display it during extraordinary ones. Nothing performed with integrity is insignificant. When difficulties arrive, avoid adding unnecessary suffering through exaggerated judgment. A challenge does not become unbearable simply because it feels uncomfortable. An inconvenience does not become injustice merely because it interrupts your plans. Learn to describe events accurately rather than dramatically. This task is demanding. This conversation is difficult. This outcome is disappointing. Such descriptions remain faithful to reality without surrendering to despair. Language influences judgment. Judgment influences action. Guard both carefully. As evening approaches, spend time reviewing how your attention was used. Do not count only completed tasks. Examine the quality of your presence throughout the day. Where did your thoughts wander into needless worry? Where did unnecessary comparisons steal your gratitude? Where did impatience prevent careful action? Where did reason quietly guide you back? This review is not designed to create guilt. It exists to strengthen awareness. What is observed honestly can gradually be improved. Over time, you will discover that contentment is not a reward given after life becomes simple. It is the natural result of directing your mind toward what reason recognizes as truly valuable. External events continue changing according to their own course. Some days bring success, others bring disappointment. Some relationships deepen, others end. Health changes, opportunities appear and disappear. Yet your capacity to think clearly, choose honorably, and act with integrity remains available in every circumstance. This realization brings remarkable steadiness. You stop demanding certainty before acting. You stop postponing gratitude until perfection arrives. You stop measuring the value of today according to temporary emotions. Instead, you begin asking one question whenever uncertainty appears. What does reason require of me now? Sometimes the answer is to continue working. Sometimes it is to remain silent. Sometimes it is to speak honestly. Sometimes it is to accept what cannot presently be changed. Sometimes it is simply to give complete attention to the responsibility already before you. These answers rarely satisfy impatience, yet they consistently strengthen character. Eventually, your relationship with time itself begins to change. The future remains worthy of thoughtful preparation, but it no longer becomes the place where you expect fulfillment to begin. The past remains worthy of reflection, but it no longer becomes a prison built from regret. The present becomes sufficient because it contains everything required to practice wisdom. That is the quiet freedom Stoicism points toward. Not a life without uncertainty, not a life without effort, not a life without loss. A life in which every passing moment becomes an opportunity to exercise reason, cultivate virtue, and live according to principles that remain steady regardless of changing fortune. When you learn to meet each present moment with disciplined attention instead of restless resistance, contentment ceases to be something you chase. It becomes the natural companion of a mind that has finally learned where life is actually being lived. Number 7. End needless comparison and build unshakable freedom within yourself first. The moment you begin measuring your worth against another person's life, you surrender authority over something that should never leave your care. You stop asking whether your own character is improving and begin asking whether your circumstances resemble someone else's. From that moment onward, your peace depends upon comparisons that can never produce lasting satisfaction. The rational mind recognizes that comparison is not simply a habit of looking outward, it is a judgment. It quietly declares that another person's possessions, recognition, appearance, achievements, or position determines something about your own value. That judgment deserves immediate examination because it rests upon a false measure. Your worth cannot be discovered by looking into another person's life. It is revealed by examining your own conduct. Every comparison begins by directing attention away from the only place where meaningful progress can occur. Instead of asking whether you acted with integrity today, the mind begins asking whether someone else advanced more quickly. Instead of strengthening patience, honesty, courage, or moderation, energy is spent observing circumstances beyond your responsibility. Nothing beneficial grows from this exchange. The person who continually watches others gradually neglects the work that belongs to them. The mind becomes occupied with outcomes it cannot govern, while the condition of its own character receives little attention. This is how freedom is quietly exchanged for dependence. Freedom does not disappear all at once. It is surrendered one judgment at a time. You become dependent upon approval rather than conscience, dependent upon recognition rather than virtue, dependent upon appearance rather than truth, dependent upon success rather than integrity. These dependencies seem harmless at first because they promise motivation. In reality, they weaken the mind by placing its stability under the authority of changing circumstances. Look carefully at what comparison does during an ordinary day. You complete honest work, yet another person's success immediately makes your own effort appear insufficient. You experience gratitude until someone displays greater comfort or wealth. You appreciate your progress until another person's achievements seem faster. Nothing within your own life changed. Only your judgment changed. This reveals where the disturbance truly begins. The external event possesses no direct power over your peace. The interpretation grants that power. A disciplined mind refuses to grant such authority carelessly. Instead, it asks a different question. What belongs to me in this moment? The answer never includes another person's reputation, opportunities, possessions, talents, or recognition. Those belong to them. Your responsibility begins and ends with your own judgments, choices, words, and actions. When this distinction becomes clear, comparison gradually loses its attraction because it no longer serves any useful purpose. Another person's success becomes information rather than a threat. Another person's talent becomes something to appreciate rather than resent. Another person's progress no longer diminishes your own responsibility to continue improving. This change does not happen by accident. It requires deliberate daily discipline. Each morning, before entering a world filled with opinions and appearances, establish the standard by which you intend to evaluate yourself. Do not decide that your day will be successful if others admire you. Do not decide that it will be successful if everything unfolds according to your preferences. Choose a measure that remains available regardless of changing circumstances. Resolve to speak truthfully. Resolve to act fairly. Resolve to complete your responsibilities with care. Resolve to govern your desires with moderation. Resolve to meet difficulty without abandoning reason. If these become your measures, no comparison can deprive you of progress because your standard belongs entirely to your own conduct. Throughout the day, Observe the first moment when comparison begins entering your thoughts. It often arrives quietly. It may appear while reading about another person's accomplishments. It may appear during conversation. It may appear while remembering someone from your past. Do not condemn yourself for noticing it. Instead, examine it carefully. Ask what judgment has just appeared. Perhaps the mind has concluded that success must occur according to another person's timetable. Perhaps it believes recognition determines worth. Perhaps it has confused external advantage with genuine excellence. Once the hidden judgment becomes visible, reason can begin correcting it. Replace it with something truer. Another person's path cannot determine mine. Another person's fortune cannot define my character. Another person's achievements cannot prevent me from acting wisely today. These reflections restore attention to what genuinely belongs within your care. One of the most valuable practices is to reduce unnecessary concern with appearances. The more frequently you seek evidence of your value through public approval, the more fragile your inner life becomes. Approval changes quickly. Opinions shift without warning. Those who praise today may criticize tomorrow. If your peace depends upon their voices, stability remains impossible. Instead, cultivate the habit of seeking quiet agreement with your own conscience. At the end of each day, ask whether your actions deserved respect, not whether they received it. This distinction creates remarkable independence. Relationships also improve when comparison loses its influence. Envy quietly damages goodwill because it turns another person's fortune into a personal injury. Pride creates distance because it demands superiority rather than shared humanity. Comparison encourages both. Reason rejects both. Instead of asking whether you stand above or below another person, ask whether you have treated them justly. Respect becomes easier when competition no longer governs perception. You begin seeing others as fellow human beings rather than measures of your own importance. This outlook strengthens both humility and kindness. Neither quality weakens character. Both protect it. There will always be someone wealthier, someone stronger, someone more skilled, someone more widely admired. There will also always be someone facing greater hardship, someone carrying heavier responsibilities, someone enduring deeper loss. If you organize your peace around these endless comparisons, your mind will never rest. There is always another measure waiting to disturb you. The rational person steps away from this endless contest, not because achievement lacks value, but because character possesses greater value. Achievement depends upon many conditions beyond complete control. Character depends upon your choices. One deserves your effort. The other deserves your attachment. During difficult moments, return repeatedly to your own responsibilities. Ask yourself what virtue requires here, not what recognition requires, not what appearance requires, not what comparison demands. Simply what wisdom, justice, courage, and moderation require. These questions simplify life because they remove unnecessary distractions. Evening reflection strengthens this habit further. Review the situations where comparison entered your thinking. Notice how quickly dissatisfaction followed. Then review moments when your attention remained centered upon your own conduct. Observe the difference in your inner condition. One path created agitation, the other produced steadiness. The evidence becomes increasingly difficult to ignore. Eventually, you discover that freedom is not gained through surpassing everyone around you. It is gained by no longer needing your worth to depend upon surpassing anyone at all. This realization changes ambition rather than destroying it. You continue striving for excellence. You continue developing your abilities. You continue fulfilling your responsibilities with seriousness. But your motivation changes. You seek improvement because excellence reflects good character, not because superiority promises lasting happiness. This distinction protects both effort and peace. When setbacks occur, comparison no longer multiplies disappointment. When success arrives, comparison no longer inflates pride. Your attention remains where reason always intended it to remain, upon your own conduct, upon your own judgments, upon your own integrity. Build your freedom there first. Strengthen the part of yourself that fortune cannot easily disturb. Guard your principles more carefully than your reputation. Value your conscience more highly than public recognition. Measure your progress by increasing wisdom rather than increasing admiration. A life governed in this way becomes quietly resilient. External conditions continue changing, yet the foundation remains steady because it was never built upon comparison in the first place. The strongest form of freedom is not having more than others. It is no longer needing others to determine who you are. When that freedom has been patiently cultivated through daily discipline, your character becomes your truest possession, and no comparison can take from you what reason has carefully built within. Number 8. Master your attention and refuse every distraction from meaningful living. Your attention is the direction of your life. Wherever it settles, your character gradually follows. Many people believe they lose their days because of demanding schedules or difficult circumstances. More often, they lose them because they never decided what deserved their attention in the first place. A mind without deliberate direction rarely remains empty. It is quickly occupied by distraction, unnecessary worry, passing impulses and opinions that contribute nothing to the cultivation of virtue. The disciplined life begins by recognizing that attention is not an unlimited resource. Every moment spent feeding resentment cannot also be used to strengthen patience. Every hour given to needless comparison cannot also be used to improve judgment. Every unnecessary distraction quietly takes time from the work of becoming more just, more courageous, more moderate, and more wise. This is why guarding attention is not merely a matter of productivity. It is a matter of character. Before the day has an opportunity to claim your thoughts, claim them yourself. Rise with the intention of deciding what deserves your mind. Do not begin by asking what might entertain you or what might temporarily satisfy curiosity. Ask instead what responsibilities await you and what qualities of character those responsibilities require. This simple habit establishes reason before impulse has an opportunity to take command. When the day begins without deliberate intention, the mind often becomes reactive. It follows whatever appears most urgent rather than what is most important. It chases interruptions while neglecting duties. It responds to every opinion while overlooking opportunities for quiet improvement. Gradually, this habit creates the illusion of constant activity without meaningful progress. Busyness should never be mistaken for purpose. A person may spend every hour occupied while remaining unchanged in wisdom. Meaningful living demands something different. It requires choosing what deserves sustained attention and refusing what weakens the mind without improving the character. Examine carefully what repeatedly interrupts your concentration. Sometimes distraction arrives through endless entertainment, sometimes through unnecessary argument, sometimes through constant concern about how others perceive you, sometimes through imagining futures that have not yet arrived, sometimes through returning again and again to events that can no longer be altered. Although these distractions appear different, they share a common feature. They pull your attention away from the place where virtue can actually be practiced. The present responsibility deserves your complete mind. Nothing else can fulfill it for you. Whenever you notice your attention drifting toward matters beyond your authority, pause immediately. Do not criticize yourself. Simply ask whether the thought before you helps you act more wisely, more fairly, more courageously, or with greater self-restraint. If the answer is no, release it without resentment and return your mind to the task already placed before you. This repeated return is itself a form of discipline. The mind becomes stronger each time it chooses purpose over distraction. One of the greatest misunderstandings is believing that distraction is harmless because it feels pleasant. The immediate experience may indeed seem comfortable, yet every repeated surrender trains the mind to avoid sustained attention. Over time, the ability to remain present during difficult work, honest reflection, and meaningful relationships begins to weaken. Character cannot mature within a scattered mind. Virtue requires sustained attention because wisdom develops through careful observation rather than hurried reaction. Notice how distraction also influences your relationships. When another person speaks, are you truly listening, or is your mind already preparing its reply? When someone seeks your understanding, are you fully present or quietly occupied with unrelated concerns? Attention is one of the purest forms of respect. To give another person your undivided presence is an act of justice because it recognizes their dignity rather than treating them as an interruption. The same principle applies when you are alone. How often do you avoid quiet moments because they invite honest examination? Many distractions succeed because they prevent the uncomfortable work of meeting yourself without excuses. Constant stimulation becomes a refuge from necessary reflection. Yet every opportunity avoided today returns tomorrow with greater urgency. The rational person does not fear silence. Silence reveals the condition of the inner life. If restlessness appears, observe it. If dissatisfaction appears, examine it. If regret appears, learn from it. Do not immediately search for another distraction simply because your thoughts have become uncomfortable. Comfort obtained through avoidance weakens the very strength you hope to develop. Throughout the day, establish moments where you intentionally reclaim your attention. Before beginning a task, pause briefly and remind yourself why it deserves your effort. During conversations, notice whenever your thoughts begin wandering and gently return them. While working, resist the urge to divide your attention unnecessarily. Complete one responsibility with care before reaching for another. This practice may appear ordinary, yet it gradually transforms the quality of your thinking. A divided mind struggles to make sound judgments. A focused mind observes clearly before acting. There is also wisdom in examining what deserves no attention at all. Not every opinion requires a response. Not every disagreement deserves prolonged debate. Not every criticism deserves emotional investment. Not every rumor deserves curiosity. Choosing not to engage with what lacks value is itself an expression of moderation. The disciplined mind understands that refusing unnecessary attention is often wiser than seeking perfect control over every situation. As evening approaches, review not only what you accomplished, but also where your attention traveled throughout the day. Ask yourself whether your thoughts remained aligned with your highest responsibilities, or whether they were repeatedly captured by matters that offered no lasting benefit. Observe these patterns honestly without becoming discouraged. Awareness precedes improvement. You cannot direct what you refuse to notice. Over time, you will begin recognizing that attention influences every other aspect of character. Patience becomes easier when your attention remains on understanding rather than reacting. Courage becomes steadier when your attention rests upon duty rather than fear. Moderation becomes more natural when your attention values long-term integrity above immediate pleasure. Justice becomes clearer when your attention remains fixed upon what is right rather than what is personally convenient. Everything begins where attention rests. Meaningful living is rarely destroyed through dramatic events. More often, it fades through countless unnoticed moments where attention is surrendered without examination. One unnecessary distraction seems harmless. One careless hour appears insignificant. One neglected responsibility feels unimportant. Yet these moments accumulate just as disciplined choices accumulate. Every day quietly shapes the person you become. Therefore, choose carefully where your mind will remain. When uncertainty arises, ask a simple question. Does this deserve my attention? If the answer leads toward wisdom, give it your full effort. If it leads toward vanity, resentment, idle curiosity, or endless distraction, release it without hesitation. Your attention is too valuable to be spent carelessly. No one else can guard it for you. No circumstance can reclaim it once it has been wasted. Only deliberate judgment can decide where it belongs. As this discipline grows stronger, you will notice a quiet change within yourself. Your days become less hurried, despite containing the same responsibilities. Your conversations become deeper because you truly listen. Your work gains greater care because your mind remains present. Your decisions become steadier because they arise from thoughtful examination rather than scattered impulse. External life may continue to present uncertainty, interruption, and difficulty. Yet your inner life begins developing remarkable order because your attention no longer follows every passing attraction. Instead, it follows reason. That is where lasting freedom begins. Not by controlling every event around you, but by faithfully directing the one faculty that shapes every judgment, every choice, and every action. Master your attention with quiet discipline each day, and you gradually discover that the richest life is not the one filled with constant stimulation, but the one in which every moment is used to strengthen the character that no change of fortune can ever take away. Number 9. Remember death and value each choice with unwavering moral purpose. Death is one certainty that every person acknowledges in theory yet avoids in practice. The mind speaks of it as something distant, something belonging to another season of life, another stage, another version of the future. Because of this illusion, days are treated as though they are guaranteed, opportunities are postponed as though they will patiently wait, and moral decisions are delayed as though there will always be another chance to correct them. A disciplined life begins by abandoning this comforting fiction. The awareness that life is finite is not meant to produce fear. It is meant to produce clarity. Every morning you awaken with a limited number of hours that can never be recovered once they have passed. Whether the day feels productive or wasted, generous or selfish, honest or deceptive, it joins every previous day in forming the character of your life. Time does not pause while you decide whether you are ready to live according to your principles. It continues moving with complete indifference to hesitation. This realization should not burden you. It should awaken you. When you remember that your time is limited, many concerns immediately lose their false importance. Arguments that exist only to protect pride become easier to release. Trivial distractions lose much of their attraction. Endless postponement becomes difficult to justify. The question changes from what feels easiest to what deserves the time that has been entrusted to you. That is the beginning of wisdom. Many people imagine that a meaningful life requires extraordinary achievements. They wait for remarkable opportunities before deciding to become serious about their character. Yet mortality teaches a different lesson. A meaningful life is built through ordinary choices repeated faithfully while time remains available. One truthful conversation, one just decision, one act of patience, one responsibility completed with care, one temptation resisted. These moments appear small, yet they become the substance of a life examined honestly. Your attention should therefore turn away from how long you expect to live and toward how well you are choosing to live today. Length cannot be controlled. Conduct can. This distinction changes everything. When you begin measuring your days by the quality of your character instead of the quantity of your achievements, every ordinary circumstance becomes an opportunity to practice virtue. Waiting in difficulty becomes an opportunity for patience. Disagreement becomes an opportunity for fairness. Uncertainty becomes an opportunity for courage. Success becomes an opportunity for humility. Every condition of life contains material for moral development if reason remains your guide. Do not allow the thought of death to become an excuse for haste. There is a difference between urgency and recklessness. Urgency reminds you that every decision matters. Recklessness forgets that every decision should be guided by wisdom. The disciplined person never rushes away from careful judgment simply because time is limited. Instead, the awareness of limited time encourages greater attention to every choice. Ask yourself throughout the day whether your actions deserve the hours they require. Time is among the few things that cannot be restored once spent. Money may return, health may improve, reputation may recover, lost hours never come back. Spend them accordingly. This examination should extend beyond major decisions. Notice how often unnecessary resentment occupies your attention. Observe how much time is consumed by replaying conversations that cannot be changed. Consider how frequently worry invents futures that never arrive. These habits quietly consume portions of your life without improving either your circumstances or your character. Reason asks whether such thoughts deserve another hour. Most do not. Each morning, before beginning your responsibilities, remind yourself that today is valuable precisely because it is not guaranteed to repeat. This reflection should not produce anxiety. It should produce gratitude combined with seriousness. Let it encourage you to speak honestly while the opportunity exists. Let it encourage you to fulfill neglected responsibilities without delay. Let it encourage you to repair relationships where justice requires effort. Do not assume that another occasion will certainly arrive. Act well while action remains possible. Throughout the day, examine every important choice through the lens of moral purpose. Before speaking, ask whether your words reflect honesty and fairness. Before acting, ask whether the decision strengthens or weakens your character. Before postponing an obligation, ask whether delay serves wisdom or merely protects comfort. These questions gradually transform ordinary living because they place virtue at the center of every decision rather than treating it as an occasional concern. There will always be reasons to postpone difficult work. The mind readily invents them. Tomorrow appears more convenient. Another season seems more suitable. Greater confidence feels necessary before beginning. Yet the habit of postponement quietly shapes character. Every delay teaches the mind that principle may wait while comfort takes priority. Eventually, this habit extends far beyond individual tasks. Truth is postponed. Forgiveness is postponed. Self-examination is postponed. Discipline is postponed. Meanwhile, life continues. The rational person recognizes that moral improvement belongs to the present moment alone. Tomorrow may provide another opportunity, but it is never owed. Therefore, today's opportunity deserves complete attention. Even relationships become clearer when viewed through this perspective. Many conflicts continue because pride values victory more than understanding. Harsh words remain uncorrected because apology feels uncomfortable. Gratitude remains unspoken because affection is assumed to have unlimited time. Mortality exposes these assumptions as dangerous. Speak appreciation while others can still hear it. Offer fairness while reconciliation remains possible. Do not allow unnecessary resentment to occupy time that could instead strengthen mutual respect. This is not sentimental thinking. It is disciplined recognition of reality. As evening approaches, review the day carefully. Do not ask merely whether you were busy. Ask whether your time reflected your principles. Consider where impatience wasted opportunities for kindness. Notice where fear delayed necessary action. Observe where comfort persuaded you to neglect duties that deserved immediate attention. Then ask yourself one final question. If this day had been the complete measure of your character, what would it reveal? Allow the answer to instruct rather than discourage you. Honest reflection is valuable only when it leads to correction. Tomorrow's improvement begins with tonight's truth. Over time, you will notice that remembering life's limits changes your relationship with success as well. Achievements remain worth pursuing when they serve worthy purposes, yet they no longer become your highest concern. Recognition becomes secondary to integrity. Reputation becomes secondary to justice. Personal advantage becomes secondary to acting well. This order brings remarkable steadiness. External results remain uncertain. Moral purpose remains available in every circumstance. No change of fortune can prevent you from choosing honesty. No unexpected setback can prevent you from choosing fairness. No loss can prevent you from choosing courage. No uncertainty can prevent you from choosing moderation. These choices remain entirely within your reach, as long as life itself remains. That is why they deserve your greatest attention. Do not allow awareness of death to make you fearful. Allow it to make you faithful. Faithful to your responsibilities. Faithful to your principles. Faithful to the promises you have made. Faithful to the quiet work of improving your own character, one decision at a time. A life shaped in this way does not become meaningful because it is unusually long or widely admired. It becomes meaningful because each day is treated as an opportunity to practice wisdom before time quietly closes the opportunity forever. Live with that understanding. Rise each morning, prepared to use your hours well. Guard your judgments carefully. Direct your actions toward what is honorable, rather than merely convenient. Let every decision be worthy of the limited time entrusted to you. When the end of life is remembered without fear and without denial, each ordinary day gains extraordinary significance. Every honest word, every just action, every restrained impulse, and every courageous choice becomes part of a life that cannot be measured merely by its duration, but by the unwavering moral purpose with which it was lived. Number 10. Live according to reason and everything essential will already remain. You are constantly surrounded by things you cannot fully control. Events shift without warning. People change their minds. Circumstances rise and fall without asking for permission. Yet most of your suffering does not come from these events themselves. It comes from the judgments you attach to them. The mind insists on labeling every situation as good or bad according to preference, not reason. Then it reacts as if those labels were absolute truths rather than temporary impressions. To live according to reason is to correct this habit at its root. Reason does not demand that life become predictable. It does not require that every outcome match desire. It does not pretend that discomfort can be eliminated. Instead, reason begins by observing reality without distortion and asking a simple question: what is actually within my control right now, and what is not? Everything unnecessary falls away once that distinction is made clearly. What remains is responsibility. Your judgments, your intentions, your choices, your actions. Nothing more is required for a stable life. Everything beyond that belongs to forces larger than your will. Other people carry their own judgments. Nature follows its own course. Time moves forward regardless of your preference. When you try to extend control beyond your proper boundary, the mind becomes tense, disappointed, and reactive. It begins to fight against reality instead of working within it. This struggle is unnecessary. Every moment you resist what cannot be changed, you weaken your ability to govern what can be changed. Reason teaches a different response. It does not ask you to approve of everything that happens. It asks you to respond appropriately to what happens. That difference is the foundation of inner stability. Most people do not examine their judgments. They accept them instantly. A situation occurs, and the mind immediately declares it unbearable, unfair, or unacceptable. That declaration becomes the starting point of emotional reaction. From there, thoughts multiply without guidance. Anger forms, anxiety grows, resentment settles in, yet the original judgment was never examined. It was simply accepted. A disciplined mind interrupts this process before it gains momentum. When a judgment appears, it pauses. It does not obey immediately. It asks whether the impression is accurate or distorted, whether it belongs to reason or to impulse, whether it helps action or only fuels reaction. In that pause, freedom begins to reappear. You are not disturbed by events as much as by interpretations of events. This is why two people can experience the same situation and respond differently. One sees only loss, the other sees responsibility. One reacts with frustration, the other responds with clarity. The difference is not external, it is internal judgment. To live according to reason is to refine those judgments until they no longer exaggerate, distort, or mislead. Begin each day with this discipline. Before you engage with the demands of the world, examine the state of your thinking. Notice the expectations forming without evidence. Notice the fears arising without certainty. Notice the desires that assume fulfillment will bring lasting satisfaction. Then bring each of them before reason and ask whether they deserve authority over your actions. Most will not survive careful examination. What remains after this process is simplicity. You do what is necessary. You avoid what is harmful. You accept what cannot be changed. You direct your energy toward what is within your control. This simplicity is not weakness. It is strength without waste. Throughout the day, distractions will attempt to pull your attention away from this clarity. Some will come through external demands. Others will come through internal restlessness. The mind will suggest that something else is more urgent than your present responsibility. It will encourage you to abandon focus in exchange for temporary relief or stimulation. If you follow every suggestion, your life becomes scattered and inconsistent. Reason provides a steady point of return. Each time you notice distraction, you return without frustration. You do not need to punish yourself for losing focus. You only need to restore attention. That act of returning, repeated consistently, strengthens the mind more than any moment of perfect concentration ever could. Many disturbances arise from attaching importance to things that lie outside your influence. Reputation, outcomes, other people's opinions, and unpredictable events often receive more mental weight than they deserve. When these things fail to meet expectations, suffering follows. But when their nature is properly understood, their power to disturb decreases. Nothing external has authority over your inner life unless you grant it that authority through judgment. This realization is not theoretical, it is practical. It changes how you speak, how you act, and how you respond under pressure. Instead of reacting immediately to criticism, you examine whether it contains truth that can be used or noise that can be ignored. Instead of panicking when plans collapse, you ask what remains possible. Instead of chasing approval, you focus on acting correctly regardless of recognition. Reason simplifies life by removing false obligations. You do not need to control outcomes that are not yours to control. You only need to act correctly within the situation you are given. Even in relationships, this discipline brings clarity. You cannot control how others think, feel, or behave. You can only control your own responses. When expectations extend beyond this boundary, disappointment becomes inevitable. When expectations remain within reason, interactions become more stable and honest. You begin to see others not as instruments for your satisfaction, but as individuals governed by their own judgments. This reduces unnecessary conflict and strengthens understanding. Even in difficulty, reason remains available. Hardship does not prevent clarity. It tests whether clarity is already present. When pressure increases, The mind reveals whether it has been trained to observe or trained to react. If it reacts, suffering multiplies. If it observes, action remains possible. This is why preparation matters more than reaction. A mind trained in reason does not panic when circumstances shift. It returns to what is still within its control and acts from there. That return is the essence of resilience. At the end of the day, reflection becomes essential. Review your judgments. Identify where emotion replaced understanding. Notice where assumption replaced observation. Recognize where impulse replaced deliberate choice. Do not judge yourself harshly for these moments. Simply learn from them. The goal is not perfection. The goal is clearer judgment tomorrow. Over time, something important becomes visible. The more consistently you live according to reason, the less external life determines your inner condition. Events continue to change, but their ability to disrupt decreases. What once felt overwhelming begins to feel manageable. What once felt urgent begins to feel temporary. What once felt personal begins to feel neutral. This is not because life becomes easier. It is because your judgments become more accurate. When reason governs your thinking, unnecessary suffering begins to fall away. What remains is what has always been sufficient for a meaningful life. Clear perception, responsible action, acceptance of what cannot be changed, commitment to what can be improved. Everything essential remains because nothing essential depends on illusion. You do not need more control over the world. You need clearer control over your judgments. From that clarity, everything else becomes simpler. And in that simplicity, life stops being a constant struggle against reality and becomes instead a steady practice of meeting each moment as it is, responding with discipline, and leaving behind everything that does not require your participation.